Nishmati ehav alla natha. And nashla lakeach nishmati mini.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the most controversial films that caused a substantial public outcry.
Je connais toutes les tables de multiplication, je te le jure! La table 1 fois 1!
Number 50, a Serbian film.
Miloše, ovo je jedna jako ozbiljna organizacija. Moji klijenti tačno znaju šta hoće, a ja jako dobro znam šta radim.
Some movies are made purely for shock value. A Serbian film is one of those movies. A man named Miloš is tricked into filming some kind of art project, which is really just a series of increasingly disturbing and violent acts. And that's pretty much what the movie is as well. While it's ostensibly some kind of political allegory, a Serbian film is really just a string of gratuitous scenes featuring extreme sexual violence. There's one sequence in particular that is just ridiculous and is widely regarded as one of the most shocking moments in cinema history. Needless to say, the movie's grotesque content has sparked outrage, censorship, and bans worldwide. Number 49, The House That Jack Built.
I've been told you have an interesting theory about the material, which you claim has its own will. Find the material, Jack, and let it do the work.
Lars von Trier is no stranger to stirring controversy and making provocative films, but The House That Jack Built may have been one step too far. The movie is a dark exploration of a serial killer's psyche, with Matt Dillon playing the horrifying and deadly Jack. He views murder as an art form and will kill anyone he desires, even children. And yes, you see that. The killing sequences are portrayed in harrowing detail, and many critics question the movie's artistic merits, arguing instead that it was a mere indulgence in gratuitous violence. Von Trier was also widely accused of misogyny, as a significant portion of the violence is directed toward women.
You know, I take it all back. What I said earlier about you looking like a serial killer? No. You don't have the disposition for that sort of thing. You're way too much of a wimp to murder anyone.
Number 48, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Dr. Jones, let's just say for now that you are of interest to the Bureau.
Of great interest.
It had been nearly 20 years since Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. People weren't really asking for another film in the first place, as The Last Crusade wrapped things up perfectly, and Harrison Ford was starting to get up there in age. So already fans were apprehensive. And then we got whatever this is. Aliens, nuking the fridge, surprisingly terrible CGI and green screen work. This was not the Indiana Jones we knew and loved. It even took home the Razzie for Worst Prequel, Remake, Ripoff, or Sequel, so ferocious was the public pushback against it. And unfortunately, Dial of Destiny did nothing to resurrect the goodwill.
You think he'd be proud of this?
Number 47, Salo or the 120 Days of Sodom.
Well, Your Excellency, are you convinced? It is when I see others degraded that I rejoice, when they suffer humiliating disdain, that I have the exquisite pleasure of realizing how much better it is to be me than one of the inconsequential populace.
Like a Serbian film, much discussion has been raised regarding the artistic merits of Salo. Is it a well-filmed piece of political and social allegory, or is it just an excuse to be edgy? Many people believe it's the latter. In the mid-1970s, the themes and explicit imagery of the movie were unprecedented in mainstream or even art cinema. Audiences were unprepared for what Pier Paolo Pasolini was giving. And the many scenes of graphic sexual violence, humiliation, and degradation led to widespread bans. Even to this day, the level of extreme violence is shocking, and it has remained banned in several countries.
Listen, you insignificant, wretched nothings. You are here solely for our pleasure. Expect none of the kindness you knew in the outside world, like liberty or the ridiculous idea of showing pity to others.
Number 46, Batman and Robin.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age!
The Batman franchise was already on thin ice thanks to Batman Forever. Val Kilmer was a controversial choice for the Caped Crusader, and the movie ignored Tim Burton's dark style in favor of bright colors and a comedic tone. Audiences in 1995 did not know how good they had it. Fast forward 2 years to Batman and Robin, which was so bad it effectively killed the franchise for nearly a decade. It's not only considered the worst Batman film, but one of the worst films of all time, period. End of story. There is very little to like here, and it features what could be one of the worst screenplays in the history of the art form.
I want a car. Chicks dig the car. This is why Superman works alone.
Number 45, Green Book.
You asked me once why Dr. Shirley does this. I tell you, because genius is not enough. It takes courage to change people's hearts.
The Academy Awards are contentious at the best of times, but sometimes they get it so wrong that everyone piles on. That's the case with Green Book, which is widely regarded as one of the most undeserving Best Picture winners of all time. It's certainly not a bad film, and Mahershala Ali absolutely deserved his trophy. But Best Picture? The movie's reviews were good, but definitely not great. And it received criticism for its white savior narrative, its misguided racial themes, and its inaccurate depiction of the Shirley family. It just seemed like the Academy was making a point rather than rewarding what was actually the best movie of the year.
You must be Dolores.
Welcome.
Buona tarde. Thank you for sharing your husband with me.
Number 44, Super Mario Brothers.
Name? Mario. Last name?
Mario.
Okay, what's your name?
Luigi.
Luigi?
No, Luigi Mario.
Okay, look, how many Marios are there between the two of you?
There's three. There's Mario, and Luigi Mario.
The fact that a Mario movie made less than $40 million in 1993 is just astounding. The franchise was at the absolute tip-top of its cultural relevance, and the movie should have been such a home run that the ball went out of the stadium and into the parking lot. Instead, we got Super Mario Brothers, which has been widely lambasted ever since. The four principal actors have all openly regretted their involvement in the film, and many people have questioned the bizarre creative choices that were made throughout production. The weirdly dark tone, the dystopian city, the nasty slime, it's a fever dream of nonsense, and absolutely not what fans were expecting.
Yikes. Man, she sure makes an impression.
Number 43, Heaven's Gate.
It's beautiful. Belongs in a museum.
Do you ever wonder how movies went from small indie darlings in the 1970s to the studio-controlled blockbusters of the 80s? The answer is mostly Heaven's Gate. Michael Cimino proved a poor leader, his direction leading to massive budget overruns and countless delays. The film was ultimately savaged by critics and grossed only $3.5 million on a ballooned budget of $44 million. Its failure contributed to the bankruptcy of its studio, United Artists, which had once been a beacon of creativity and artistic risk. It also caused studios to wrestle creative control from directors, ending the auteur era and ushering in a decade of safe, mass-appealing blockbusters that would ensure a solid return on investment.
Do you remember the good gone days?
Clearer and better. Every day I get older.
Number 42, The Human Centipede 2, full sequence.
Martin, I'm here today because your mother is very worried about you.
He keeps on talking about a centipede with 12 people. What does that mean?
And you thought the first Human Centipede was bad. Well, it looks like Disney next to this thing. Full Sequence takes everything that was gross and grotesque about the first movie, ramps up the depraved violence, and takes away all the artistic merit that made it somewhat bearable. The sequel was poorly made and produced solely with the intent of going viral and shocking as many people as possible. Both its bad filmmaking and over-the-top gore earned the film substantial notoriety, with Roger Ebert famously calling it, quote, an affront to any notion of human decency.
Have you seen The Human Centipede? I was really drawn to the film because of the medical aspect of it. If you were a surgeon, you could actually perform that surgery. It's just so scary.
Number 41, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi.
You've seen this island.
Only in dreams.
Who are you?
The Star Wars franchise is going through a bit of a dark age, minus a few notable exceptions. And where did that start? Where did the historic, culture-shaking goodwill end and the general malaise begin? The answer is undoubtedly The Last Jedi. While the film was positively received by critics, die-hard Star Wars fans absolutely hated it. The reasons are many, including its reliance on humor, poor character arcs, and the intentional subversion of franchise tropes. Characters both old and new were done dirty, and the social media campaign against this movie is the stuff of legend. It was so bad that Disney tried course-correcting with The Rise of Skywalker, but that only made things worse.
We've decoded the intel from the First Order spy, and it confirms the worst. Somehow Palpatine returned.
Number 40, Shakespeare in Love.
Mr. Fennyman, allow me to explain about the theatre business. The natural condition is one of insurmountable obstacles on the road to imminent disaster.
If it wasn't for the Academy Awards, Shakespeare in Love would probably be viewed in a more positive light than it is today. It really is a great film, and it deserves to be remembered as a classic. It just had the unfortunate position of racing against other classics. Many thought that Gwyneth Paltrow did not deserve the Oscar for Best Actress, and that it should have gone to Cate Blanchett for Elizabeth. But perhaps the most controversial win was Best Picture, which it infamously attained over Saving Private Ryan. It was controversial then, and it's probably even more controversial now owing to that movie's cultural legacy.
That's quite a view.
Yes, it is.
Number 39, Ecstasy. Never heard of Ecstasy? Well, audiences in the 1930s certainly heard about it. The movie is considered a landmark in film history for its bold and controversial depiction of sexuality, being the first mainstream film to portray intercourse. The scenes are quite tame by modern standards, and if the movie was released today, absolutely no fuss would be caused. But that wasn't the case in 1933. Ecstasy was banned in several countries and faced public pushback from notable religious groups, including the Vatican, who condemned it on moral grounds. And with the Pope personally denouncing the film, especially in the conservative public of the 1930s, it was doomed to both scandal and infamy. Number 38, Last Tango in Paris.
Go get the butter.
I have to hurry. I have a cab downstairs waiting.
Go get the butter.
This was the 7th highest grossing movie of 1973, which is crazy considering its X rating. X was the 70s equivalent of NC-17, meaning no one under that age could be admitted. It was usually reserved for adult films, but Last Tango in Paris obtained it thanks to its explicit sexual content. Many were not ready for its unapologetic perversion, and it was often dismissed as mere pornography. The infamous butter scene is particularly notable, both for its on-screen visuals and the harsh treatment that actress Maria Schneider endured while filming it. And while the film passed with an X rating in America, it was outright banned in many countries around the world.
You want to know why you don't want to know anything about me? Because you hate women.
Number 37, Song of the South.
Where's Brer Rabbit's briar patch?
What? Well, now, let me see. That I can't exactly say, because I ain't been keeping close track as I used to.
Disney wished to create a movie based on the character Uncle Remus, and the result was the enormously controversial Song of the South. With stereotypical characters, a romantic tone, and an idealization of the Jim Crow South, the movie was, well, a little racist. The film received harsh reviews from African Americans of the time, with one critic calling it, quote, as vicious a piece of propaganda for white supremacy as Hollywood ever produced. And it only got worse from there. With its grossly outdated and harmful tropes, Song of the South has been thoroughly ignored by Disney, who have been reluctant to release the film on home media and streaming platforms.
Don't you know you can't run away from trouble?
Well, I'm glad there ain't gonna be no trouble.
There ain't no place that far.
Number 36, Pink Flamingos.
They are finished, and a lovely couple they are. Aren't they? Gentlemen of the press, get ready, because you are about to witness the biggest news event of the year. Live homicide.
John Waters has always been interested in pushing boundaries and putting the unacceptable on celluloid. Perhaps his greatest cultural accomplishment is Pink Flamingos. The movie has an undeniable spot in film history and is now regarded as a classic piece of abject cinema. It was also rated NC-17, quote, for a wide range of perversions in explicit detail. And yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Pink Flamingos is proud of its scatological tone, complete with the famous tagline, an exercise in poor taste. And when your movie features what this movie features, and when it ends with Divine actually eating dog feces on camera, you have certainly earned the right to call yourself that.
What you are about to see is the real thing.
How much is that dog in the window?
Number 35, Lolita.
What makes you say I've stopped caring for you?
Well, you haven't even kissed me yet, have you?
Leave it to Stanley Kubrick to somehow find a way to film Lolita. Despite its widespread acclaim, Vladimir Nabokov's novel is enormously controversial owing to its inappropriate storyline, in which a literature professor falls for a prepubescent girl. The novel was considered unfilmable, so certain concessions were made, like slightly aging up Lolita. Kubrick also employed innuendo and suggestion in his filmmaking, as censors outright refused to put the more explicit content on film. Regardless, the general storyline and themes of the movie still faced significant scrutiny and sparked widespread outrage. While critics conceded that it was a well-made film, they widely questioned its moral character.
Do you believe in God?
The question is, does God believe in me?
Number 34, The Last House on the Left.
We know you were just kidding around. Oh, yeah. We'll split, and we won't say anything to anybody, I swear.
You must think we're pretty stupid.
While this is now regarded as a classic, people were just not ready for it in 1972. The extreme violence of the late 1960s, particularly the Tate murders, were still fresh in people's minds. And besides, what we see on screen is still incredibly shocking even by today's standards. The Last House on the Left is a revenge film, and as such, it contains many deplorable acts. It faced widespread censorship and even outright bans, with many countries finding the film too extreme and sadistic. Here's a good example. Aside from a very brief stint on home video in the early 80s, the movie's fully uncensored form was not seen in the United Kingdom until 2008.
It's crazy. What's crazy? All that blood and violence. I thought you were supposed to be the love generation.
Number 33, Cannibal Holocaust.
Keep rolling! We're gonna get an Oscar for this!
With a name like Cannibal Holocaust, are you really surprised the film received backlash? Featuring some of the most outlandish violence ever seen on film, including real footage of animal death and mutilation, the movie was condemned then and it's condemned now. In fact, it's one of the rare cases where a movie has actually led to criminal charges. Director Ruggero Deodato and a number of others were brought up on charges of obscenity and successfully convicted, receiving a 4-month suspended sentence. The movie was also seized and banned around the world, and many of these bans are still in force today.
I wonder who the real cannibals are.
Number 32, The Birth of a Nation. Much ink has been spilled regarding The Birth of a Nation and how unbelievably racist it is. But unlike some other movies on this list, that controversy did not come later. It was there from the very beginning. Yup. Even by the very conservative standards of 1915, this movie was deemed ridiculous and offensive. With historical revisionism, blackface, racist depictions of black characters, and a glorification of the KKK, there's no controversy The Birth of a Nation won't touch. There were widespread protests against the film, the NAACP tried getting it banned, and many eastern cities refused to play it in theaters. It was also blamed for perpetuating racial tensions in America, and a 2023 study proved that it contributed to racial violence. Number 31, Triumph of the Will. This is often seen less as a genuine movie and more as a piece of propaganda because, well, that's exactly what it was. Triumph of the Will had the veneer of a proper movie, chronicling the Nazi Party Congress of 1934. It has genuinely great filmmaking, and it won numerous industry awards throughout Europe. But propaganda it remains. The movie was personally commissioned by Adolf Hitler, portraying the Nazi regime in a positive light, and Hitler himself as a near-divine figure. It also played a significant role in promoting Nazi ideology in its native Germany. While film historians have noted its technical mastery and innovation, it continues to draw criticism owing to its link to the fascist regime. Number 30, The Flash.
This is mad trippy. So we're like in the future. No, wait, this is not trippy, dude. This is catastrophic.
This movie faced backlash before it was even released, thanks to the actions of its star Ezra Miller. The Flash finished filming in late 2021. In 2022, Miller was accused of all kinds of nasty behavior, including assaulting and harassing several people and multiple thefts. They were arrested, and many people speculated that they were dealing with some mental health issues. Of course, all of this affected Warner Brothers' ability to market the film, and turned off a lot of people from going to see it.
It confirms the alibi Mr. Allen has argued and his son, Barry, has corroborated since day one.
Although it received decent reviews, especially for a DCEU film, it barely made back its massive budget at the box office. Number 29, Dragon Ball Evolution.
I am Muten Roshi, the Invincible!
My grandfather is dead.
How do you ruin an adaptation of a beloved manga? By making a cheap, boring movie that's totally unfaithful to the source material, and casting a bunch of white people in the lead roles. Everyone hated this movie. It has a dismal 14% on Rotten Tomatoes, and Dragon Ball creator Akira Toriyama disliked it so much, he said he couldn't even call it Dragon Ball. The hate for this movie was so intense that years later, both the screenwriter Ben Ramsey and lead actor Justin Chatwin actually apologized for messing it up so badly.
I was in the heat of battle and I thought you were someone else.
It's alright. I let you hit me.
Number 28, It Ends With Us. This film was the surprise hit of the summer of 2024 and was generally well received by fans. However, it will likely be remembered more for the acrimony between stars Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. The first inkling that something was amiss came during the press tour, when many accused Lively of mismarketing the film as a lighthearted rom-com when it actually centers around domestic violence.
Hello, Blake Lively here. Colleen Hoover. And It Ends With Us is in theaters now, so grab your friends, wear your florals, and head out to see it.
Behind-the-scenes stories came out about the rancorous relationship between the film stars, and it wasn't just the fact that they had differing creative visions for their shared project. Lively accused Baldoni and producer Jamie Heath of sexual harassment and creating a toxic work environment. And Baldoni accused her of defamation and hired a crisis management firm. Eventually, lawsuits were filed, but we might never know for sure the full scope of what happened on that set.
Actor-director Justin Baldoni is now suing his former co-star Blake Lively and her husband Ryan Reynolds, seeking more than $400 million in damages, accusing them of defamation and extortion.
Number 27, Dear Evan Hansen.
Evan, right? That's your name?
Yeah, it is. It is. Sorry, it's Evan. It's Evan. I'm sorry.
First, let's address the elephant in the room. Ben Platt looks way too old to be playing a high schooler. He was about 27 at the time of filming, and he somehow looks even older than that on screen. It doesn't help that his co-star, Caitlin Dever, looks much younger, making their romantic scenes together a little creepy. Many critics and viewers also weren't fans of how the movie portrayed mental illness, with some calling it shallow, cringy, and even harmful. There seems to be a pattern here. If you're gonna make a movie dealing with dark themes, you need a deft touch, and some filmmakers just don't have it.
You see everything you wish you had, and it's right there, right there, right there in front of you.
Number 26, Joker.
Please, I love this job.
Daughter, I need to know why you brought a gun into a kid's hospital.
It's a prop. It's part of my act now.
It's hard to believe how much outrage this movie generated before it was even released. Many people thought the Joker glorified violence and might even inspire people to commit acts of violence after seeing it. Some movie theaters brought in extra security for opening weekend, while others refused to show the film at all. Ultimately, these fears proved to be unfounded. The 2024 sequel, Joker Folie à Deux, faced a different kind of backlash. People just didn't like it very much. Reviews were mixed at best, and it massively underperformed at the box office, leaving the future of the franchise uncertain.
You can do anything you want. You're Joker.
Number 25, Monty Python's Life of Brian.
I want to have babies.
You want to have babies?
It's every man's right to have babies if he wants them.
But you can't have babies.
Don't you oppress me.
This classic satire follows an ordinary man who's born next door to Jesus and later gets mistaken for the Messiah. Of course, religious comedies often inspire a lot of outrage, but the backlash to Life of Brian was extreme. Many town councils in the UK banned the film before they even saw it. Some of them didn't even have movie theaters in their jurisdictions, meaning the ban was a purely symbolic act. It was also banned in Ireland and Norway, and some religious groups called it blasphemous.
For he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow, and so say all of us,
and so say all of...
They particularly blasted the ending, arguing that it made light of Jesus' crucifixion. The controversy has continued into the 21st century, with some Christian groups criticizing others for promoting the film. Number 24, The Last Airbender. This movie's biggest crime is that it's just terrible. The plot is nonsensical, the acting is wooden, the editing is awful, and the effects look extremely cheap despite the $150 million budget. Critics and fans alike hated it, with many calling it one of the worst movies ever made. The decision to cast white actors in two lead roles also didn't help. To make matters worse, the TV show that it's based on is universally beloved.
We used to be a great society before you killed our leader. Now look at us!
Aang would never do something like that. No Avatar would. And it's not fair for you all to question his honor.
While the live-action movie does everything wrong, the cartoon gets everything right, with well-developed characters, strong themes, and exciting storylines. Although writer-director M. Night Shyamalan claimed to be a fan of the show, he absolutely mangled the adaptation.
They want you to be their Avatar. We all do.
Number 23, Blonde.
Every night, the differing hundreds of people love you. They want you. You belong. Just that alone is worth anything.
One of the most polarizing films of 2022. This fictional account of Marilyn Monroe's life seems to dig up the deceased star just to exploit her. Her real life was filled with tragedy, but Blonde is downright brutal in its portrayal. It includes scenes of assault and other horrifying incidents that never actually happened, inviting the viewer to gawk at Monroe's suffering. Although Ana de Armas's performance was widely praised, many criticized the depiction of Monroe as dehumanizing, one-dimensional, and misogynist.
There's going to be younger people that don't know anything about her, and they're going to think that JFK assaulted Marilyn Monroe. It's not fair to either one of them because there's no proof that it ever happened.
The other characters, including President John F. Kennedy, don't fare much better. Regardless of your opinion on the film, we can all agree that it is not an easy watch. Number 22, A Clockwork Orange.
The Durango 95 purred away real horror show. A nice, warm, vibrating feeling all through your gutty woods.
Sometimes the backlash to a violent film is unreasonable, but in the case of A Clockwork Orange, it's a little more understandable. Both the movie and the book on which it's based are extremely violent, and not just by 1970s standards. It's made worse by the fact that the perpetrators are teenagers, and the film often depicts their brutal actions as lighthearted and fun. It was banned in multiple countries and even blamed for some copycat crimes, including a murder committed by a 16-year-old who claimed he was inspired by the film. Stanley Kubrick's wife reported that she and her husband had been the target of threats over the movie. As a result, it was removed from British cinemas at the director's request.
You can be instrumental in changing the public's verdict. Do you understand, Alex? Do I make myself clear?
Number 21, Music.
Hello, music. I'll be up to fix her air conditioner in a couple of minutes. All right, here you go.
When viewers walk away from a movie wondering what the creators were thinking, you know something has gone very wrong. Aside from the fact that it's just plain bad, Music was criticized in practically every corner of the internet for its portrayal of autism. Writer-director Sia chose to cast a neurotypical person, Maddie Ziegler, to play the role of a nonverbal autistic girl. The portrayal was slammed as stereotypical, exaggerated, and even dangerous.
Members of the autism community called for representative casting and called out what they perceived as offensive portrayal of people with autism.
Perhaps worst of all, Ziegler herself was afraid of offending autistic people with the film, but Sia talked her into going through with it. This is one movie that really never should have been made. Number 20, Crash. Although Brokeback Mountain seemed preordained to win the 78th Academy Award for Best Picture, a select group of people were rooting for Paul Haggis's ensemble drama about racial tension to pull an upset.
We're black and black people don't tip. So she wasn't gonna waste her time? Now somebody like that, nothing you could do to change their mind.
Well, the little movie that could ultimately crashed the Oscars, and its supporters immediately jumped ship. Now, when people discuss the most unworthy Best Picture winners, Crash is typically the easy answer, with many calling it Traffic for Dummies.
In LA, nobody touches you. We're always behind this metal and glass. I think we miss that touch so much that we crash into each other just so we can feel something.
If you're one of those few people that stand by the Academy's choice, though, we won't judge you. Number 19, Aloha. On paper, Aloha is seemingly a huge hit. It's written and directed by Cameron Crowe and stars a slew of A-listers that would otherwise guarantee butts in seats. including Bradley Cooper, Bill Murray, and Rachel McAdams. But things did not turn out that way. The writing and directing did not work well, but most of all, it faced a significant amount of controversy for its whitewashing. The brunt of the criticism was aimed at the casting of Emma Stone, who plays a one-quarter Hawaiian, one-quarter Chinese pilot named Allison Ng.
Well, sir, I will also be an invaluable addition to our joint mission. I am a quarter Hawaiian.
Some argued that Stone's poor casting was intentional, including Stone herself, who stated, quote, "The character was not supposed to look like her background," though she has also expressed regret. Nevertheless, it was fiercely criticized and openly mocked at the 2019 Golden Globe ceremony.
It is the first studio film with an Asian American lead since Ghost in the Shell and Aloha.
Number 18, Driving Miss Daisy. This film, starring Morgan Freeman and Jessica Tandy, was a huge success in 1989, grossing nearly $150 million and earning 9 nominations at the 62nd Academy Awards.
I don't need you. I don't want you. And I don't like you saying I'm rich.
It also set a few Oscar records. Tandy became the oldest Best Actress winner, it's the most recent PG movie to win Best Picture, and it's one of just 5 Best Picture winners to have not received a Best Director nomination.
Something wrong back there, Miss Daisy?
No.
Something I done?
No. Yes.
Perhaps that speaks to the controversy of its win. Many people believe that Driving Miss Daisy was undeserving of Best Picture, including the members of the Academy. When The Hollywood Reporter polled members in 2015, many admitted that the award should have gone to My Left Foot instead. Number 17, The Twilight Saga. After Stephenie Meyer's bestseller got the big screen treatment, half of the human population rejoiced, while the other half was indifferent.
How old are you?
17.
How long have you been 17?
A while.
The more attention Twilight got and the more MTV Movie Awards it won, the more annoyed people became. That annoyance quickly turned to anger that was so strong it was as if the films in the series were the spawn of Satan.
Beautiful.
While even once diehard fans are starting to admit that Twilight received more success than it deserves, it's also possible we've given it more hate than it deserves. Number 16, Mother. Darren Aronofsky's Mother is one of the most divisive movies of the decade, and that was made readily apparent during its premiere at the Venice Film Festival, when it was simultaneously applauded and booed. Some hated the film's overt religious metaphors, perhaps expecting a more straightforward home invasion story.
These people.
I know, they're just letting off steam.
They're painting our house.
But the worst offense was the graphic violence on display. Mother was viciously criticized for its degree of violence, which includes constant mistreatment of Jennifer Lawrence's mother and a horrific event involving her newborn baby. Many people can stomach barbarity in film, but this was crossing a line. Number 15, Ghostbusters. As well-intentioned as this movie may have been, Ghostbusters is just one of those movies you do not remake. It's an all-time classic, and nostalgic fans who hold it close to their hearts were not happy.
Forget it, Venkman. You had your chance to cooperate, but you thought it'd be more fun to insult me. Well, now it is my turn, wise ass.
The all-female cast also drew a large amount of backlash, as did Leslie Jones's performance, which some perceived as a loud and stereotypical African-American character.
The power of pain compels you!
Ow!
The trailer quickly became the most disliked on YouTube, and this only fueled more backlash. Some saw the hostile response as misogynistic and an example of the ongoing culture war, and people involved in the movie began actively defending themselves on social media. It was just a huge mess from all directions. Number 14, The English Patient. The story of The English Patient is obviously beloved. The movie received 12 Oscar nominations, and the novel it's based on took home both the Booker Prize and the Governor General's Award. However, both received a fair amount of criticism and debate regarding the ethics of rewriting history.
Read to me, will you? Read me to sleep.
The titular patient is based on Laszlo Almási, a man who helped the Axis powers during World War II. Al-Mashi died of dysentery in 1951, whereas in the movie he is given a fatal overdose of morphine after a fiery plane crash. The movie has also received backlash for Fargo being snubbed at the Oscars, and was famously mocked on an episode of Seinfeld.
Did you just see The English Patient? Didn't you love it? No. How could you not love that movie? How about it sucked?
Number 13, Blue is the Warmest Color. This European film was warmly received by critics and won numerous industry awards. But controversy was there from day one. Director Abdelatif Kechiche received a lot of heat for the reported unfavorable working conditions, both from the crew and the lead actresses.
Tu connais quoi? Picasso? Ouais. Picasso. Okay, d'accord.
Kechiche himself later expressed hesitation about releasing the film, believing that the negative publicity had tarnished its reputation. The movie was indeed released, but only fueled more backlash, as many people took issue with its more intimate scenes. Some thought they were too graphic, and those belonging to the LGBTQ+ community found them both unrealistic and exploitative.
Ça demande encore un peu de pratique.
Number 12, Zero Dark 30. While Kathryn Bigelow's Zero Dark 30 was an impeccably made film, it also received a ton of negative feedback that has undeniably marred its legacy. The film quickly found itself caught up in the 2012 presidential election thanks to many outspoken Republicans who accused it of supporting Obama's re-election. Some even believed that Bigelow and her team were given classified information by the Obama administration while crafting the story.
I need 4 techs in a safe house in Rawalpindi. 4 techs in a safe house in Peshawar. Either send them out or send me back to DC and explain to the director why you did it.
Others, including the director of the CIA, fiercely and publicly criticized the movie's seeming pro-torture leanings, with some calling it both propagandistic and historically inaccurate. Finally, the families of some 9/11 victims attacked the film for including voice recordings of their deceased loved ones without consent. Number 11, Juno. Despite strong critical praise, Juno immediately found itself the target of movements that were anti-abortion and those that were for abortion rights. Some believed that the movie displayed strong anti-abortion themes, as Juno briefly flirts with the idea before actively deciding against it.
Your baby probably has a beating heart, you know. It can feel pain. And it has fingernails.
It doesn't help that Juno was released in the same year as both Waitress and Knocked Up, 2 comedies with similar storylines.
Okay. Well, I'll meet you in my office. Okay. Give you a little time alone there.
The movie was further blamed for a series of teenage pregnancies in Massachusetts, resulting in what was termed the Juno effect.
That ain't no Etch-a-Sketch. This is one doodle that can't be undid, Holmes Gillett.
Finally, the movie's political background was brought up yet again in 2019, when writer Diablo Cody claimed that she wouldn't have written Juno today, owing to the, quote, hellish alternate reality that we now seem to be stuck in. Number 10, The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. Although most of us knew The Hobbit didn't need to be 3 movies, we were just excited to revisit Middle-earth, and went along on Bilbo's unexpected journey.
I'm going on an adventure!
At first, it was fun to see Gandalf and Gollum again. After sitting through the trilogy's following chapters, however, Peter Jackson was officially trying our patience. Because The Hobbit began as a relatively short children's novel, many believed this drawn-out adaptation had more filler than a never-ending soap opera.
You turned your back. You turned away from the suffering of my people and the inferno that destroyed us.
Perhaps a director's cut, or better yet, a fan cut is in order. What was also unexpected was the mixed results over the new 48 frames per second tech used, with many moviegoers finding it less than an improvement. Number 9, Titanic. It's possible for a movie to become too successful, Titanic being an evident example.
He envisioned a steamer so grand in scale and so luxurious in its appointments that its supremacy would never be challenged. And here she is.
The film broke all kinds of records at the box office and the Oscars, but James Cameron's unsinkable hit did not stop there. For the longest time, it was impossible to go anywhere without seeing Titanic being referenced. Once the world finally got sick of it, They really, really got sick of it.
Well, it's a simple question. Do you love the guy or not?
This is not a suitable conversation.
Why can't you just answer the question?
Be that as it may, chances are you saw Titanic in theaters multiple times. Any film that accomplishes that must have done something right. Number 8, Ghost in the Shell. Scarlett Johansson is a great actress, but was Motoko Kusanagi the right role for her?
We made you a new body, a synthetic shell. But your mind, your soul, your ghost, it's still in there.
A lot of people did not think so. Being an adaptation of a Japanese manga, Ghost in the Shell received a lot of pre-release publicity owing to the casting of Johansson, with many people calling it an example of whitewashing. It received further backlash when it was reported that the filmmakers were going to use CGI to make Johansson appear Asian. However, many others, including the director of the anime films and the Ghost in the Shell rights holder, defended the casting and heaped praise upon Johansson.
It feels like there's always this thick fog over my memory and I can't see through it.
It was also widely reported that many Japanese natives and fans of the manga were not upset, nor that surprised with Johansson's casting. Number 7, Avatar. The bigger the movie, the bigger the backlash. Between 2009 and 2019, Avatar was the highest-grossing film ever. While it was briefly overtaken by Avengers Endgame, it retook the top spot in 2021 thanks to a Chinese reissue.
You are on Pandora, ladies and gentlemen. Respect that fact. Every second of every day.
Unsurprisingly, the epic sci-fi has suffered a behemoth backlash unlike any other throughout this time. Paralleling Titanic, Avatar has gone from reigning at the box office to being the most heavily criticized entity online. Bloggers and commenters alike cannot stand the notion that a movie with such simplistic themes and a cliched story made over $2 billion.
What the hell have you people been smoking out there? They're just goddamn trees.
Regardless, there are still plenty of pro-blue people who proudly defend the film, which is fortunate considering how many sequels are set to be released in the 2020s. Number 6, The Last Temptation of Christ. Martin Scorsese has often received backlash for the degree of violence in his films. In this case, though, it was for depicting Jesus Christ getting personal with Mary Magdalene. While the movie includes a disclaimer stating that it is, quote, not based upon the Gospels, that didn't stop some Christians from getting upset. Many Christian groups protested and boycotted the movie's release, and a few theater chains caved to the pressure and refused to show the movie. Scorsese reportedly received death threats, and the film was outright banned in several countries. But the worst came on October 22, 1988, when a Paris cinema showing the film was set on fire by a group of Christian fundamentalists.
Join me. Together we'll rule the living and the dead.
14 people were injured in the attack. Number 5, Kids. This Larry Clark-directed coming-of-age drama was originally given the rare NC-17 rating owing to its explicit content.
First time is always wet. Just be glad you didn't lose your virginity in the backseat of a rental car.
Shot in a quasi-documentary format, Kids received immediate criticism owing to its graphic nature, with some even calling it exploitative and bordering on illegal. Not only was the content itself controversial, but many of the main characters were deemed abhorrent and unlikable.
Watch where the f*** you skating at. Watch where you walk, yo. What? What I said, yo. What? Forget it, enough.
One scene, which we will not show, continues to draw immense criticism, both for its horrific content and for the unflinching manner in which it's filmed. Very few people saw any artistic merit within the film, instead calling it provocation for provocation's sake. Number 4, The Interview. If the hullabaloo around The Interview taught us anything, it's that people will absolutely cater to the demands of North Korea.
인민 여러분, 우리 인민 공화국의 아름다운 강산을 알리고자 미국에서 온 동무.
The movie immediately drew criticism in the totalitarian country for its depiction and on-screen killing of Kim Jong-un. Sony Pictures releasing was hacked prior to the release of the film, and the hackers, who had North Korean connections, threatened future attacks if the release went ahead as planned. Following the threats, Sony pulled the interview from wide release, a move that was fiercely criticized by critics and actors alike. Even President Obama decried the move, saying, quote, "We cannot have a society in which some dictator in some place can start imposing censorship in the United States." Number 3. Cuties. This is the debut of French director Maimouna Doucouré. It was not a great first impression.
This morning, Netflix is under growing fire after its release of the award-winning French film, Cuties.
Netflix absolutely bungled the release of this film by unveiling a controversial poster depicting scantily clad young girls. While the movie criticizes this type of hypersexualization in preteens, Netflix subscribers and organizations found the poster extremely inappropriate and demanded the cancellation of the film. Numerous American politicians publicly condemned the movie through social media and even opined that its release broke federal laws and constituted criminal behavior. But despite the very prominent backlash, Netflix continues to defend the film and claims that it's misunderstood.
My film Cuties is a mirror of today's society, a mirror sometimes difficult to look into and accept, but still so true.
Number 2. Nymphomaniac. Directed by the ever-provocative Lars von Trier, Nymphomaniac is about a woman named Jo regaling a stranger about her wild personal life.
But if you're to understand, I'll have to tell you the whole story. And it'll be long.
With the uncut version running a patience-testing 5.5 hours, Nymphomaniac received criticism both for its indulgent runtime and explicit content.
It's extremely common to react sexually in a crisis. Maybe shameful to you, but in literature, there's many worse examples.
In fact, the lower body parts of various adult entertainers who acted as body doubles were superimposed over the actors in the movie. As such, the film features incredibly graphic shots that some find highly uncomfortable to watch, and it faced some backlash regarding the unrestrained nature of the visuals. This is certainly not one to watch with your parents. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. The Passion of the Christ. Really, anything involving Jesus is bound to be controversial.
Amrin diant malka. Hey malkutak.
While an enormous success and obviously well-made, Mel Gibson's biblical epic was relentlessly crucified by the media. Some argued against the biblical accuracy of the film, but one of the biggest claims was that the movie was anti-Semitic. However, many of these claims were made prior to release, and many prominent movie critics praised the film and argued against its supposed anti-Semitic themes. Others focused on the extent of the graphic violence and compared it to a snuff film. Not only was the violence hard to watch, but some also argued that the movie missed the story's teachings by focusing solely on its brutality. What's your opinion on these films? Let us know in the comments below.
Is this a perverted film you've been talking about?
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.